It's a great day. My name is Che Brown, the happy entrepreneur, and welcome to the Happy Entrepreneur Show, the number one business development and revenue focused late night show in the country where we are on a mission. And our mission really is to empower, our mission is to inspire. And our mission is to provide you, the entrepreneur, with all of the resources that are necessary to execute that big vision you have for the people you were called to serve. And on this episode, we have the one and only Nicole F. Roberts. Is that right? I kept saying Nicole R. Roberts, but it's Nicole F. Roberts. I try to get the initial in there without looking, ladies and gentlemen, who's in the building. And she'll be talking about generosity wins. What's going on, Nicole? How are you?
I'm good. How have you been?
Well, I'm good as well. Thanks for joining. Folks are looking at the topic saying, wow, generosity wins, how it's game-changing superpower. But before we talk about that, what does generosity look like these days? What does it even mean? Because it's a big word, generosity. I know it's like 5 syllables, by the way.
It is a big word. It's a long word. It's also a very powerful word, which when you say, what does it mean, right? These days. So if you look at generosity, especially in America, in a dictionary or online, what you're going to see is a lot of wording around and examples of donor dollars and philanthropy, being generous with your money. And that was something that really struck us. And actually, I found quite disturbing because I think we all know that when one is generous and they live with a generous spirit, that often has absolutely nothing to do with a dollar of any kind. It's about how you give of yourself, how you think of others, how you take care of yourself, how you take care of others. And so actually, I'm glad you asked because on the first page of our book, we redefine generosity and we define it as any act of kindness or support given with no expectation of exchange or return from the recipient. And so what that means is there's limitless ways to be generous. It is really a gift. It is something that you give to other people and you give to yourself with no expectation of return. You put good acts and kindness out into the world and you let them go and it will come back to you.
Yeah, it will come back. And I know we'll get into the book, we'll get into the character, Emily Gardner, and all that she's done. But I'm
Yeah.
curious, it sounds simple as you're speaking, but in this world that we live in today, no matter what you believe, no matter what you stand for, it seems like someone wants something if they give something, or someone has to give something and want something back. Why do people struggle? I mean, why was the book have to be written? Why do people struggle with generosity?
Well, I'd answer that a couple different ways. The
Yeah.
first being we in this world, I think, really, really struggle with being generous with ourselves. And it is important to remember yourself, right? You cannot give. We hear all the sayings. You can't give from an empty cup. You can't give from an empty well. You've got to put your own face mask on before you help others, right? The plane's going down. But it's true in our everyday lives. And so we live in such a fast paced, busy, hustle culture world, especially those of us who are entrepreneurs, right? That being generous with ourselves could be as simple as something I've been practicing lately. I have a toddler and run businesses, a book. It's 5 minutes outside. And my husband is now well aware that I just need some fresh air. It's summer and I just need to go breathe and I will come back a better wife, a better mother. I just got to let my day go. And for me, that involves just being outside, a simple act to just for me, but it's actually for everybody else as well. And so I think you have to be intentional about being generous with yourself. As for being generous with others, we know it could be as simple as a smile, right? No small act is too small if it benefits someone else. And maybe another person, all they needed that day was a smile to let them know things are going to be fine. Somebody sees you. You may have just passed them on the street, but they see you. You're there. It could be big acts. It could be taking on mentorship for a younger person, especially in the world of business, right? There is nothing greater that we possess than our knowledge and our time. And to give those to someone else, I don't really think there's a more generous act. I mean, time, we'll never get it back. And so to give that willingly to someone else is just incredible. But it can be hard because we get so caught up in the world, and it's so easy when you're taking in a long day to just like look at a screen and scroll and let your brain and body zone out, if you will. But I mean, in a way, it sounds silly, but like to be really generous, you have to be intentional. Like you have to start. A lot of people, we have to start by going out of our way by doing small acts every day. And then after a few weeks, a month, it becomes second nature.
I love it. And what do you say to the mom? I mean, I know you mentioned you're a mom. We were talking before the show. You've got a lot of responsibilities, and it's a good segue before we get into a little more about the book. About a good part of our audience are dualpreneurs, by the way, and they're probably raising their hand and say, "Whoa, she talking about being generous to yourself, Shay. She talking about self care with yourself." But I want her to know first, Shay, that I'm a full time entrepreneur. I'm a full time employee, Shay. So I mean, they're dualpreneurs. Oh, by the way, I want
Yep.
to know that I take care of my husband or I take care of my wife. I have kids, or some of them say I'm a caregiver right now. Some of their kids,
Yep.
yours is a toddler. Some of their kids have schedules, so they've got double and triple schedules, and they're
Yep.
involved in their community and other things. Somebody say, "Wait a minute, wait a minute." Number one, Shay, ask her a two-part question: how does she not feel guilty when she goes and takes time for herself to be generous with herself? How does she not feel guilty about that? And number two, is there such thing as this work-life balance that she was talking about earlier? Because I can be generous to myself and generous to others. So it's a two-part question. I know it's a loaded
Mhm.
question. All right, but it's part of our audience and it has to be on their mind.
Well, yeah, and I'm going to answer the second one first to
Yeah.
say my personal belief and my personal bias. I don't really think there's balance. As I see it, we ebb and flow, right? So what looks like balance one week may not look like balance the next week. And right now, having an almost 2 year old, where he was in development 6 months ago isn't necessarily applicable to where he is today. So the demands on me, the demands on my husband. Um, he actually is starting daycare in a few weeks, full time. Well, all of a sudden, that's going to look different too. My husband's schedule, my schedule, the baby's schedule, like everything's going to change. And so, balance to me is really where you are in that moment or that time, or if you will, like that chapter. It's not like from now on, I'm going to spend this many hours here and this many here, and that's my balance. It, unfortunately, in entrepreneurship in particular, it doesn't work, right? You are all things to all people at all times. Um, so then to the part about guilt. Yeah, I mean, are there any parents out there who don't feel guilt, like constantly wondering if you're doing too much of this, too little of that? Um, we're all on our own journey. What I have learned is where I am right now. I have an exceptionally demanding dualpreneur job. I have a job. I'm also doing some side projects for my own company. I'm launching a book. Um, for me to be a good wife and mother, I need to go breathe for 5 minutes. I deal with some wild, wild people, particularly towards the end of the day. And the last thing I want is to bring that stress into, we work from home, so the other part of my house, right? I don't want to bring that to dinner. I don't, um, there are days when I honestly like feel like tears are, are welling up. I don't want that to be how my son greets me in that moment. So I'm like, just finished my last call. I'm gonna step outside for 5 minutes and breathe, and then I'm a whole new person stepping in. Uh, Often when I'm standing there, I'm thinking, "Ooh, I should be inside. I should be helping with dinner. I should be changing a diaper. I should be, pick your number of things." But I also know that if I bring a lot of that heavy, heavy energy from one half of the house into the other, it just sets the tone for the evening. And I don't want dinner and bath time and bedtime. I don't, even if it lives in my head, all the stuff that happened during the day, I don't want to bring it emotionally into that space. And so for me right now, it is what works.
I like it, by the way. And now people say, Shay, you jump right into it. Generosity wins. We're going to learn in a second how it really is a superpower at the end of the day.
Mhm.
But you might be wondering, Shay, she's run off and speaking, but I didn't get a chance to Google her. I didn't get a chance to read her bio. I have no idea, but I like what I'm hearing, but I have no idea who she is. Could you take a moment, you know the drill, and tell us her backstory? And what was that defining moment that led her and her co-author to doing what they're doing now, which is have Generosity
Hmm.
Wins, the book. So you mind taking a moment and we'll slow down and give them the backstory so they know a little about. You came a little sneak preview here about Tyler and a mom and a husband, but tell about the backstory that
Yeah.
led to where you are now.
So the backstory, I think the shortest, like the what do you like the Instagram highlight version, I guess, uh,
I like that.
is I my background was in neuroscience, and then I got a master's in public policy. I thought I could change our healthcare system more effectively through policy. Moved to Washington D.C. I ended up getting a doctorate in public health because that's how I think about the world. I realized uh, changing policy, or at this point, policy and politics so heavily overlap that I just wasn't going to be as effective as I thought I could. And so I view all things as public health. Everything we see, touch, feel, eat, breathe, it affects our health: mental, emotional, physical, social. And social health is real, right? How we interact with the world around us. And, um, and so I thought that was a good place to put my skills. I've worked at this point in probably like 50 countries, maybe a little less, I'm not sure. And so I actually put off having a family. I didn't know if I ever would. I was very happy in my career, solving problems, going places during disasters, and helping set up infrastructure, things of that nature. Very much focused on food security, clean water, what I think of those big, heavy issues. And then um, close to 40, I met my husband and we decided, let's give it a go, right? So life changed completely. It coincided with a pandemic where all of my international work came to a big halt anyway. And so we just said, sort of, let's figure it out. Let's go with the flow. And right when I was having my son, uh, I got this call. I had pitched a couple of book ideas to some publishers, and, and I got these lovely letters saying, we really like your idea and how you think about the world, but no one reads healthcare books. No one buys healthcare books. And then actually one of the publishers reached out to me and said, we have an idea. There is this guy who embodies everything he wants to write about, talk about, speak about, which is generosity. And he's looking for someone. He's this incredible businessman, and he's looking for someone in the world of science. And they thought we'd make a good match. And I tell you, we did one call and we were all in. The book title and idea that he presented was the foundation, and yet we took a completely different path. And I know we'll talk about how we ended up writing a business fable of all things. It was not what we set out to do, but we really believe it was the right path for us. But the moment Monty Wood and I joined forces, I think this book took on a new life. He was able to talk about all the things he believed, all of his experiences. And for him, it was really about attracting success. And he believes completely that the reason he's been so successful in business is because he so genuinely and authentically cared about and was generous to the people he worked with and for and worked for him. And by being that way, everyone worked 10 times harder for him and towards the mission of the organizations that he ran. And he brought that premise. And, admittedly, I believed in it, but I thought, well, we can't quantify karma. We can't quantify a lot of this, kindness. But the more I started digging, the more I found there is real data and science behind being generous. And we refer to it as a lot of different things. Um, but you'll notice in our title, we chose the word superpower, which at
Yeah.
first I thought was a little cheesy, right? I'm like, well, everyone's got a superpower. Here's what I found though: we are the only species on Earth that is truly generous. And I spent a lot of time looking into data of other species, and you can imagine that when you see certain similar species, you'll find generous acts. You will see primates that share their food, they share their living space. They'll take care of another when they're injured. But you can just as quickly see a male from a different group try to come in and he'll be killed. He'll be kept out. Someone who's weak or injured will be left behind, right? We are actually the only species on Earth that is truly generous. We will sometimes give, whether it's time, money, effort, ideas, and we'll never know the recipient. You do this show and other shows consistently, putting wisdom out to the world, sharing ideas. And yeah, you can see numbers, you can see some metrics,
Mhm.
but you'll never know the lives you truly touch. You'll never see the full range of entrepreneurs who go, I should try this. I should do that. I should pivot this way. I should take that to heart. I should actually not do that. Come to find out, that may be a waste of time. You put those things out, and it really just becomes a ripple effect because someone else passes that wisdom on or says, you should listen to this. And you'll never know. And that is truly generous. And no other species on earth does that.
Wow. You know, stated so well is a great segue into Emily Gardner, who's the character. When I first
Yeah.
saw the book title, and I was thinking to myself, okay, this is going to be interesting. And I said, wait a minute. I thought it would be more of a scientific book. And I said, wait a minute. A character, a fiction story here? Stuck me right in. Take us for a moment in time you have. Tell us, the character, Emily. Forget that, and I don't want to give the book away, but forget that she searches for generosity. But what I like most about it is that she's trying to get other people to embrace it. So it's not like she said, I have mine. Hopefully you get yours. She says, no, I'm going to compel you, almost like a movement, to be a part of something bigger than yourself. So take a little bit of time to talk about the character and her search for her superpower and how it may
Exactly.
relate to the
Well, it's
entrepreneurs and the
'cause she,
dualpreneurs.
yeah, it's because she got off track, and so as I said, it's really a business fable of sorts. And we have this character, Emily. We didn't quite pinpoint her age, but we ballpark her around 30 something. And she's what one would call successful in her career enough. And she goes in for this annual sort of review, and her boss is like, you're not doing it. You're not doing the job. And she's completely caught off guard. And she says, well, the number's here and the number's there. And we intentionally put her in hospitality, the hospitality industry. And so she can show all these metrics of, well, here's why I met this and that. And her boss really says, look, yeah, you met that number, but how many people did you have to let go? And then their work got pushed off onto somebody else. And now overall the workload amongst our people and what it's done to the morale in the company, and he lays out all these examples that, yes, if you look at a spreadsheet and a line item, you say success, we saved this much. When you look at the toll it takes on the happiness of the company and in hospitality, right? They're constantly having to work with people who are traveling, who are on vacation, who are doing something, with their family, and that spillover effect. And so she's sent on a journey in which she is tasked with interviewing 12 people. So there's 12 interviews. They're all real people. So while Emily is a fictitious character, all 12 people in our book are very real. And in the back of each chapter, there's actually a QR code that you can scan. It'll take you right to their LinkedIn. You can connect with them, talk to them. And she meets these 12 people who are all what I would consider to be wildly successful. And I mean that in every aspect, because what we find is people who are really generous, they are healthier, they live longer, their marriages last longer, over their careers, they make more. They have more close relationships in their communities. And so, as she interviews these people, she learns all these different lessons about what it means to truly be generous, from a wide range of people who work in education to also hospitality, sports, entertainment. I mean, you name it. We tried to really, go all around the U.S. And by the end, she revisits her personal vision, mission statement, purpose statement, all those things we do when we set out. And she really sees where she got away from all those things she really believed in and how she wanted to impact the world. And then, as you said, she really takes it on like a movement of being generous isn't that hard. It's intentional, and every day, here are things I can do to be more generous with others and with myself. And she builds out a plan of how to incorporate it into all of the hotels in like I said, in its chain, its hospitality. And she's then appointed to the first ever title of Chief Generosity Officer. And that is her role in this global company going forward, and to always be thinking about how the company can be more generous to its employees, to its staff, to its clients, and to the communities where it has headquarters and hubs and homes.
I like that not only did she find it, but now she's given the title and the
Mhm.
responsibility to create a movement of other individuals within her own company. What did you enjoy most about writing this book? Other than the fame that you get and so forth, you step back and look at it.
What
What do
is
you
that?
enjoy most
What's
about
that
it?
part?
I get this exclusive interview. You're here on the Happy Entrepreneur Show. You've arrived. You
You're
didn't know that? You didn't know
correct.
you've
I
made it?
am.
Like, this is
I
the
am.
creme de la creme?
Um, what was the most enjoyable part? I mean, truthfully, it sounds really nerdy, but it's true. Um, as someone who thinks in a very academic way, I actually really, really, really enjoyed the interview process because I learned so much from people. I literally got to be Emily. Like, I just got to be Emily in real time. And then the spreadsheets, and I'm being really serious, because what I would do is I would sit down, and Monty and I think about things so differently. So we would come to the same interview and have just completely different questions. But I would put in the person, sort of what they do, where they are geographically, and then just lots of notes. And for me, it was so fun, genuinely, to see like, oh my gosh, 10 people said the exact same thing, but no one said it the same way. And an example is like everyone, I think all 12 in some ways talked about karma, or like it comes back to you like an ROI, a ripple effect. A lot of people talk about like you put something out and the way it ripple. And it was so fascinating to hear people say the same thing and yet describe it completely differently and with different anecdotal stories. And to find those common threads for me, like these constant little eureka moments, and then to take those interviews and arrange them in the order that they're in, um, it made me revisit every interview and what not only do people have in common, but the unique things that each person brought to the table. And they would bring up this thing. Well, then that makes me think of this. So it's natural that this person should come next in the interview process, because what we wanted Emily to do is to grow through all 12 interviews. And so the rearranging of what she should learn and what it should open up for her, what examples would be given to her, um, it was really fun. The writing part is very tedious, the editing, but that sort of building the story and doing the interviews, I actually got a lot of joy out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate you taking time and being generous on this particular show, sharing the book, sharing the backstory and why it's where it is. I've never heard the book Generosity Wins, but I love the title. I love it almost as a philosophy, almost as a mantra. And if you're out there and
It
I'm in
is.
sales, as you know, so sales is, I see the world through a sales lens. But boy, what if we just took off the whole part of trying to sell and persuade and convince, and we just were just generous with how we serve?
But
Man, would
here
that
you
make a
can do
difference or
both.
what?
You can do both. I really believe, because when we are generous,
Yeah.
we build trust. And trust is what builds relationships. And there are no sales without some sort of relationship. But in some cases they are more transactional. But in others, what you're doing is you're building a relationship. And it is trust based, and it starts with you doing things that demonstrate you're a trustworthy person. You actually care about the person on the receiving end. And it could be that they need a widget and you're selling them a widget, but you're looking out for them and you're trying to solve a problem they have. You have a solution to their problem. That's actually caring about them. It is finding something to make their life easier or better. And so I don't think they're all separate sort of lanes. I think when you work from a place with a generous spirit, you're naturally going to be very good at sales, because you're always caring about the team around you. You're caring about what the person in front of you needs, wants, what will make their life better, easier, happier, healthier, whatever it is. I think they go hand in hand.
I agree with you 100%. And as we come down the home stretch, for those folks that are watching, they might be curious. What do you do for fun when you're not out saving the world or being generous to other people? We're all curious around here.
Well, if you can't tell, I don't normally show up to things in t-shirts and baseball hats. It's in the 90s in DC where I live, and we have been at a Nats game. So it's been a long, hot day. There was not time for a shower. So baseball is one. But as I said, I live in DC, and I'm really, really lucky that I love museums, and I have a little person who loves to touch everything and run wild. And so right now, I think just being out and going, like we can walk to lots of Smithsonians and museums, like that is a really happy place for me right now because I get to learn new things. I get to see new things. I also get to see things through a little person's eyes who's just like in awe of, sometimes it's just a water fountain, right? But he's just in absolute awe about it. And right now we're just sort of running around from activity to activity when we have time. And that's fun for me.
Well, cool. I mean, you live in Washington, D.C., the greatest place to live in the whole world. So I don't think you could be in a better place, although you've traveled all over. You're right back here, and I'm on the other side of you. I'm right here off of Capitol Hill in D.C., as you know as well. So go Nats, go Mystics. We're not gonna say anything about the the Commanders yet. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Nope, stop. Full. You got both. That's all we need.
Yeah, we'll pause that for a moment. Last question. We come down the home stretch. 2-part question. Number 1, what type of clients are you looking to work with these days? And number 2, how can folks get the book? How can they stay and get their hands on it? They're all curious. They're standing on the edge of their seat.
Well, again, I'll start with the second part. We have a website, generositywins.us. So generositywins.us. You can get the book anywhere. I would encourage you to go to our site for a couple of reasons. One, we have a resource tab, and there's all kinds of resources there built on the book and the QR codes in the book. 2, because we're also entrepreneurs, right? We are selling the book and knocked off a few bucks. You can get it cheaper on our site. So I would highly encourage, go to the big guys if you want, but you'll get it just as fast from us and you'll save money. So generositywins.us. Otherwise, I can be found anywhere on social media. Nicole F. Roberts. The F is there because Nicole Roberts is the most basic name out there, and there's 100 million of me, I think. So F, middle name. And clients I'm looking to work with, I'm in a place where what I love to do most is help and to fix. And in the last couple of years where I have really found my stride and been very happy is mostly actually in the nonprofit space. I'm brought in to help nonprofits rethink the way they engage the world, not only in who they're helping, but in how they tell their stories to raise more donor dollars, to make greater partnerships. In fact, when I wrote my dissertation on how to build public-private partnerships. And I love connecting people. I don't think there's anything that brings my heart more joy than saying, you should meet so-and-so, and basically knowing that 1 + 1 is going to equal 50, and they're going to go change the world and make it better. And so I don't have a specific client type, but if there are ways that I can use my skills in partnership building and relationship and trust building and behavioral science to help make whatever it is you're doing have a bigger impact on the world, then call me, because that's where I'm really happy.
Well, let me say thanks so much for being on the Happy Entrepreneur Show. One thing I do know is you can always make more money, but you can't make more time. And you've given us the most precious resource you have right now, which is what? Your time. So thanks a lot. And shout out to Siobhan Reed for connecting us. Boy, you're both amazing.
Yes. Thank you. She's amazing.
And thank you. Thank you to the viewer. Thank you for tuning in, by the way, because without you, there is no show. So I never get tired of saying every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, remind you how amazing you are, how incredible you are. We appreciate when you hit the like button, but be generous. You like that? Hit the share button. Be generous. Pass this on to some. I love Generosity Wednesday, man. That's just hot. We appreciate you, and I want you to know today is your January 1st, and your best is still yet to come. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the other side. God bless. We wish you success. Peace.